They called it spirits, not wine, not beer, not vodka. Spirits. Ask yourself, why? Why would a substance that dulls the senses, fragments the mind, and disconnects the soul be named after something sacred? It wasn't coincidence, it was code. Because long before alcohol became a social lubricant, it was a spiritual tool used for initiation, vision, communion with the unseen. In ancient rituals, wine was fermented with intention, offered to the gods, consumed in sacred space. It was never casual, it was never entertainment, it was contact. But somewhere along the line, something changed. The drink that once opened portals began closing them. What once connected you to spirit now distances you from it. What once revealed the divine now hides it beneath a chemical fog. And that change wasn't accidental, it was engineered. You see, alcohol doesn't just relax you, it suppresses you, neurologically, energetically, and spiritually. On a biological level, it lowers your vibration. It sedates your nervous system. It slows your brainwave function, pulling you away from theta and alpha states, the very frequencies associated with creativity, intuition, and spiritual access. You don't open, you shut down. And the scariest part? You start to mistake that shutdown for relief. You call it loosening up. You call it taking the edge off. But really, you're turning the volume down on your inner voice. That voice, the one that warns you, guides you, aligns you, gets drowned in alcohol's silence. And over time, you forget it was ever there. This is what makes alcohol the perfect spiritual weapon, because it doesn't just control behavior, it severs connection. Connection to your intuition, connection to your energy, connection to your why. And once that line is cut, you're easier to mold. You rely on the outside for meaning, you chase validation, you become programmable, all because a liquid said, don't feel that, don't look at that, don't listen to that. But here's what they don't tell you. That discomfort you drink to escape, that's your soul trying to get your attention. That anxiety, that restlessness, that ache, they're not symptoms, they're signals. And numbing them doesn't fix the root, it buries it. So the question is, what if alcohol was never meant to soothe your pain, but to stop you from healing it? To understand how alcohol became a spiritual weapon, you have to follow the trail not of medicine, but of power. Alcohol wasn't always the enemy. In ancient Sumeria, fermented drinks were consumed as part of initiation rites, under strict guidance, in sacred space, surrounded by chants, incense, intention. The point wasn't intoxication, it was contact. In Egypt, wine was offered to deities, mixed with herbs and resins to invoke altered states, but only by trained priests, not the masses. In Greek mystery schools like Eleusis, participants consumed a sacred brew during ceremonial initiation. But it was never about escape. It was about entry into higher knowledge, inner death, and rebirth. So what changed? Control did. When religious and imperial systems rose to dominate the spiritual landscape, they couldn't afford populations who could access the divine directly. If the divine lives inside you, why obey a priest? Why kneel to a king? So the rituals were stripped, the context was removed, the drink remained. But without intention, sacred medicine becomes toxic indulgence. And the more disconnected society became from spirit, the more alcohol flooded the culture, not as a bridge, but as a barrier. The church called altered states demonic. Science called them delusional. Governments called them criminal. But alcohol, that was legal, social, marketable, because it didn't wake you up. It shut you down. It didn't activate rebellion. It soothed compliance. And best of all, it created dependency. Spiritual practices like fasting, breathwork, chanting, they expand awareness. They require presence, effort, clarity. Alcohol gives you a shortcut feeling without the substance behind it, a sense of connection without the actual connection. A momentary high followed by a long, low drain. And that's the trick. It feels like relief, while it's actually reinforcing your disconnection. Over time, you start to believe the lie, that your real self is too much, that your feelings are a burden, that silence is empty, that presence is uncomfortable. So you drink, not to get wild, but to get numb, not to expand, but to shrink, just enough to survive. And in that survival state, you stop seeking truth. You settle for distraction, you stay in the loop, and the system keeps turning. Because a population that's numbed doesn't organize, it doesn't resist, it doesn't remember, but your body does, your energy does, your soul never forgot. It's just been waiting for the noise to stop, for the chemicals to fade, for the silence to return, so it can finally say, there's something you were born to see, but you've been drinking so you don't have to. There's a moment that comes when the buzz wears off, not just from a night out, but from a life of suppression. You wake up and feel something is missing, something vital. You can't name it, but you know it was always supposed to be there. That feeling, it's not regret, it's remembrance. Because alcohol doesn't just numb your emotions, it numbs your access to vision, to intuition, to higher frequencies. That fog you feel the day after, it's not just dehydration or dopamine imbalance. It's your system trying to come back online after being pulled offline. And here's the truth. The system wants you numb because clarity makes you uncontrollable. When you're clear, you start to see the patterns, the manipulations, the disconnect between what you're told and what you feel in your bones. That's when things get dangerous for them. Because once you stop drinking to silence your inner voice, you start hearing it again. And what it says is often uncomfortable. It tells you what needs to change. It tells you who's draining you. It tells you which parts of your life aren't aligned. And that's the real reason people drink. Not to have fun, but to avoid feeling the truth of their own misalignment. But what happens when you stop? Your nervous system begins to stabilize. Your dreams return. Your sleep deepens. Your perception sharpens. You remember how to feel, not just emotionally, but energetically. You start to pick up on things you once ignored. The tension behind someone's smile, the lie beneath a promise, the emptiness in noise. And with that awareness comes a choice. Keep numbing or start aligning. Because alcohol was never about relaxation. It was a ritual of forgetting. But now you're ready to remember. If you're ready to unplug from the fog, subscribe and hit the bell. This space isn't for comfort, it's for clarity. Because the truth is, your energy isn't too much. It's precise, powerful, electric. And once it's no longer buried under distraction, it begins to radiate again. But that radiance will shake things loose. People will fall away. Habits will scream. Parts of you will resist. Let them. Because what's coming alive inside you is not weakness leaving, it's your original frequency returning. When you stop silencing yourself with alcohol, something unexpected begins to happen. You start hearing the world clearly again. Not just the noise around you, but the quiet signals underneath everything. And those signals, they were always there. You just couldn't tune into them through the fog. Because alcohol doesn't just distort your thoughts, it distorts your field, your electromagnetic frequency, your ability to feel coherence, your access to real-time intuitive data. Yes, data. Your body is not just flesh and organs. It's a receiver, a living antenna designed to pick up subtle information from your environment, from other people, from the collective field. But alcohol detunes that receiver. It floods your system with chaos, dulls your heart's coherence, lowers the resonance of your aura. You think you're relaxing, but energetically, you're disconnecting from your own guidance grid. Now reverse that. Start removing alcohol from your system, not just as a substance, but as a habit, a ritual, a crutch. Watch what returns. Dream clarity, energy in the morning, intuition that doesn't feel like guessing. It feels like knowing. Sudden clarity on decisions that used to paralyze you. A deeper connection to your environment, nature, space, silence. Most of all, you begin to reclaim presence. And presence changes everything. Because most people aren't living, they're rehearsing their past and predicting their fears. Alcohol makes that loop bearable. But once the fog lifts, you step out of the loop. You become available to life, to people, to the moment. And that's where magic lives. In full presence. Suddenly, your conversations shift. You're no longer trying to impress or escape. You're just there. Your relationships evolve or dissolve because they can no longer hide behind social lubrication. What's real stays. What was numb fades. And you? You begin to feel what it's like to walk through the world with all your channels open. That's not just healing. That's sovereignty. Because now, you're not reacting from pain. You're responding from presence. And when you live in presence, nothing owns you. Not alcohol, not old stories, not false identities. You start making decisions from the highest part of you, not the wounded part. You start creating instead of coping. You begin to transmit, not absorb. That's the version of you they were afraid of. The one who doesn't need numbing. The one who feels everything and uses it as fuel. Because in the end, alcohol didn't just numb your sadness. It numbed your potential, but it never erased it. It just buried it under habits, beliefs, chemicals, and shame. And now you're digging it up. When you stop drinking, people expect your body to change. They expect your skin to clear, your sleep to deepen, your health to improve. And it does. But the real transformation doesn't happen on the outside. It happens inside your frequency. You stop leaking energy. You stop making yourself small. You stop outsourcing your presence to a bottle. And what returns isn't just sobriety, it's self-possession. That means your nervous system belongs to you again. Your voice comes back, unfiltered. Your emotions land clean, not distorted. You don't have to numb to survive anymore, because you've remembered how to feel and stay. That's the true spiritual path, not escaping discomfort, but transmuting it. Feeling fully, without fragmentation, holding tension without breaking, letting sensation rise without attaching shame to it. That's emotional mastery. That's energetic clarity. And that's what alcohol robs you of. You were never weak. You were just taught to fear your own depth. But now, your system is reorganizing. Your light is returning, not in sparks, but in stable, grounded coherence. You begin to speak more slowly because you're no longer rushing to hide. You listen deeper because you're no longer performing presence. You stand still because you no longer run from truth. That's what clarity looks like. Not perfection, but precision. You begin attracting different opportunities, people, and outcomes, not because you're doing more, but because your field is clean. Alcohol created energetic static. Now you're a clear channel. A transmitter of intent. And that's powerful, because people can't lie to you as easily anymore. You see it, feel it, smell it. You don't absorb projections. You return them, not with aggression, but with sovereignty. That makes you rare, and sometimes it makes you lonely, because most of the world is still trying to feel okay without becoming whole. They're still reaching for the bottle instead of the mirror, but that's not your path anymore. You've made a different agreement. To stay awake, to stay clear, to stay present, even when it hurts. And what you get in return, a quiet mind, a calm nervous system, a powerful intuition, and a reality that starts reflecting your inner truth, not your unresolved wounds. You're not just sober, you're sovereign. And no substance, no system, no story gets to own you again. They handed it to you early, at birthdays, at weddings, at celebrations, at grief. Just a little, they said, to take the edge off, to be part of the group, to grow up. But it wasn't just a drink, it was an agreement, one you didn't know you were making. The agreement to turn the volume down on your spirit, to trade presence for performance, to sacrifice intuition for acceptance, to become manageable. Because alcohol doesn't just dim your senses, it dims your sovereignty. And the worst part? It made you believe that version of you, the dull, the numb, the masked, was the real you. That the parts of you who danced wildly, wept loudly, spoke truthfully, only came out with a drink. But now you know, that was never the real you. That was the muted you. That was the you operating through a filter someone else installed. And now the filter's gone. Now the world meets you without distortion. And more importantly, you meet yourself without distortion. That is not always easy. Truth never is. But clarity is freedom. Because once you see the lie for what it is, you don't need to fight it. You simply become unavailable to it. And that's what you are now. Unavailable to shame. Unavailable to suppression. Unavailable to false comfort that costs your soul. You are not against alcohol. You're simply not willing to give it power over your frequency anymore. Because now you understand. Your energy is sacred. Your voice is clean. Your presence is enough. And that's what they never wanted you to realize. Because a clear human is a dangerous human. Not because they riot, but because they radiate. And that radiance, it wakes people up. So here's your final question. What parts of your life have you been drinking to forget? And are you finally ready to remember them? Drop your truth in the comments. You never know who needs to see someone else say it first. And if you're still here, still watching, still feeling, you're not just waking up, you're coming back online. The next video will take you deeper. Let's keep going.